reflect on this single line every time any tool which I am sharing with you. And in this, I'll be sharing with you six essential tools which you can use. You can note down or you can take a screenshot, whatever you, if you will be using these tools, even one tool you take away from this short, uh, presentation of mine, it will be helping you out in your workplace. First tool is the very important tool, and it is something which you can understand. It will be helping you a lot in your workplace thing in three of the improvements. First is if you are using these tools, one is you will be improving in your mental clarity. Second is your resilience. That means how you handle challenges at your workplace. Those things will be perfectly improved. And third thing is these are some techniques which you can use and share it with anyone who is working at your workplace. If you see someone is stressed, if you see someone, is not in their zone of working, you can share them these techniques also so that it will be helping them out. Let us move to the simple facts that why now it is more important than ever. It was not important, this mental health issues and all of these things were not important 10 years, 20 years ago. But now you will be seeing that 2 out of every 5 employees currently at workplace, they are facing anxiety or stress or depression too. And they will be promoting it out that I'm very depressed. I'm very stressed nowadays. Most of the workers, they report that they are having mental health issues and they are taking leaves at office, at workplace. This was not happening earlier. This has been happening from last 5 6 years due to the rise of technology and information overload. And 50% of the employees, you can relate this with your workplace, 50% of the employees feel currently emotionally exhausted at work. That means they're tired, they're having breakdowns, they're feeling burnout. And what happens due to this? This increase your energy and this affects your productivity, while it also increases your burnout rates. These are the days where you do not feel to do anything. You are completely blurred out. You are not in your zone, mental zone to take any decision or think about anything. This is due to the emotional exhaustion because you are so much emotionally exhausted due to multiple things happening in your workplace, also multiple things happening at your home and all of your life. Now, the great thing of importance is that if you improve in your mental health, you're likely to perform 2.5 times better at your best at your workplace. So we need to promote mental wellness so that you can improve in your creativity and engagement. I am pretty sure that if you improve these things, like you will be improving in your job satisfaction as well. Like most of us people, we are having this thing that we are not satisfied with our job. We are doing the same things again and again. We are going in the morning and coming in the evening from our work, and this is becoming our daily routine. But it is somehow affecting the same daily routine is somehow affecting your mental health also. And the tools which I'll be sharing it with you, you can implement at workplace so that even if it is a boring job to do, then also you will be satisfied with your job. You will be doing it at better level of productivity. Without anything to say further, I'll share with you one simple tool. And this is the major tool which I'll be sharing with you today. It is called as communication. We can think that it is, a basic tool, or we do not focus upon this tool a lot, communication. But when we reflect upon ourselves the entire day, almost 90% of the problems that we are having in life can be solved out if we are having an advantage of this tool, if we know how to communicate well. And when we are talking about a good communication or communicating well, we are talking about the 3 C's of a good communication. And you can implement these 3 C's at your workplace. One is clarity in communication, second is conciseness in communication, and third is the consistency. First, let us suppose what does clarity in communication means? You can take a screenshot of this, and maybe you can ask these questions later with yourself, that how are you clearly expressing your work related stress? Are you communicating it with your workplace, your teammates, your team members, or your boss? Do your colleagues and managers know that you're stressed, and how that simple stress is affecting your performance and well-being? Do they know about it? You can take these questions, you can ask with yourself, and you can reflect on these questions. You can reflect upon this question also: how can you simplify your message to your boss, or to your team leaders, or to your teammates, so that you are affecting, to reduce mental strain or yourself and your teammates as well? Because if you are stressed, believe me, people around you will be also feeling stressed. And if you try to communicate this, if you try to lighten up, the team also affects the same, because you're vibrating with an energy, and that energy gets transferred to your team also. Second, C, which you can focus upon, and you can ask these questions: are you concise? How are you defining stress and anxiety at workplace? Are you able to clearly and concisely define these symptoms, right? Or how can you elaborate these things, and how can you be direct to your boss without any fluff, without any, things? You are trying to explain these things in a very concise manner. And third thing, you can ask with yourself: how are you being consistent in your communication? Because let us suppose there is a person who says, I am stressed, or I am having anxiety. You're saying this to your boss one time, that, okay, I'm feeling tired, I'm feeling, sluggish, I'm feeling blurred out, I'm not in my zone. And you have said this one time. The boss will listen to it, and they will ignore it. Until and unless you are consistent in communication, the communication does not sticks, with anyone, if you're not consistent with it. So the whole agenda is, y- you be clear with your communication, you be concise with your communication, and along with that, you have to be consistent with your communication also. And you have to check with your workplace, what are the expectations they are setting with you, and what are the expectation moving forward at your workplace you want to have along with your work. So focus on these things. The very first tool, you have to be very clear, concise, and consistent with your communication, so that it will help you create a safe, psychologically safe workplace and an environment. This first tool, if you focus upon, then you can focus upon the second tool only if you are well versed with your communication. Because second tool is called as boundaries, and boundaries can be only set when you are good with your communication. Because if you're not good with your communication, you will be setting the boundaries in a wrongful manner, and that is something which you do not want to do. So how to set boundaries specifically? The great question, 3 4 years ago, basically, when I was going through a lot of coaching and training, so I needed to set a lot of boundaries. But before setting boundaries, you should know how to identify your boundaries. And when you will be asking these questions, you can take a screenshot, maybe you can note down these questions, or you can answer these questions afterwards. What boundaries do you need to set to protect your mental health at work? And this is very important for you to understand, that if you are not setting the boundaries correctly, you will be attracting a lot of distractions. You'll be attracting a lot of fluff that will be affecting your mental health. Then, after asking this question, you can ask that: how are your current work hours, your responsibilities at work? How are they affecting your personal life as well? Because if they are affecting your personal life in a wrong manner, then the same stress, same anxiety will be coming to your workplace back the next day. And it will be a kind of loop which you will be putting yourself into. And you do not want to put yourself in that loop, which is affecting your mental health. Ask yourself this question: that how can you recognize when do you need to say no? Because saying no is an art. And when you start to say no to things that are not important, that are, kind of a distraction for your mental health or your work, you'll be understanding how to say no to the things that does not matter at, you know it might be a, gossip in office, it might be something, some bullying at office, right? Or it might be anything that does not matter, might be boss comes with his own mental stress and he puts it on you. How can you say no to those things? So you have to put down these list of, how you can go forward in saying no. And this is an art that is why as I said, before moving to boundary, you should be good enough with your communication. If you're good enough with your communication, you can learn the art of saying no as well. When you understand, when you ask these questions to yourself and get the answers for these questions, for identifying your boundaries as well, then the place comes of how to enforce these boundaries, right? First thing you need to ask to enforce these boundaries is, how you can communicate with your peers, with your colleagues, so that you can build a proper boundaries. What are your limits, and what limits can you set with your colleagues so that they are not affecting your mental health? And how can you maintain a space? And while going through relationships and datings and everything, one important thing I understood, whether you take a relationship of a husband wife, whether you take a, relationship of a boss and teammate, having a little bit of space is very much important to conserve your mental space. And that space comes with, how you're communicating that boundary, how you're enforcing that boundary. Why it is important? Because if you do not do that, you will be involved a lot in other people's life, what is happening in their life, what stress they are bringing into your life. You will be involved in each and everything. And if you do that, if you do not enforce boundaries in your life, you will be attracting a lot of distractions that is coming from other people's life, and that will surely end up, you will be ending up in your, a burnout phase. When doing this, a very good way to understand is, while enforcing boundaries, that you respect your boundaries as well as other people boundaries also. Because if, let us suppose, you set your own boundaries and you are not respecting other boundaries, why would someone at workplace, respect your boundaries if you're not respecting other people boundaries? So you have to always be mindful of other people's mental space. How are you taking, or how are you occupying other people's mental space? How are you recognizing these things? Is there something that a person who is in your team, are they showing some symptoms, are they signaling something that they have created some boundaries and you better not cross with those boundaries as well? Because everyone has some sort of personal boundaries when it comes to their own life, their personal life or and professional life. And you have to focus upon how can you, respect other people boundaries. This will be helping you out reduce a lot of stress. Trust me, in teams, it helps you a lot. These things, when you set boundaries, and those boundaries you are keeping, not about boundaries will be not about keeping others out of your life, but it is simply just defining a thin line between where your life goes, very well, where you can remain healthy and how you can balance your work and life. These boundaries will be helping you out safeguard your mental peace and energy as well. So second tool, very much important, that is setting the boundaries right. First tool was communication, second tool is boundaries. Let us move to third tool. I'll not take much more space with you for these things because other four tools will be deal breaker for you. Third tool is network. By network, what do I mean is, what are the people, or what are the 5 6 people you meet around daily at your workplace? There is one simple quote that goes on in personal development industry is, you are the sum total of 5 people you meet daily. So network is very much important in today's time. What do I mean by this? Network most of the times acts as your support system. When we talk about mental space, a lot of time your network acts as your support system. What is the professional support that you are getting at your workplace? Are you having any trusted group of, colleagues and mentors who are guiding you properly? So there is one important phenomena which I'll be sharing it with you. It's of course not written on the slide and everything. One of my engineering faculty shared it with me. It is a concept of negative up and positive down. Uh, Negative up simply means that whatever stress you are having in your life, you're transferring to the people those who are one level up in your life. That means who are having one level up of consciousness in their life. All the negativity you transfer to them, they will be finding out a solution and giving it to you. And positive down simply means whatever positivity you are having in your life, those people, those who are below your consciousness level or understanding level or maturity level, if you can transfer all the positivity to those people, those who need them. So when we are talking about network, you should be having a network of people, those who are above your level in terms of maturity and consciousness level, and people those who are one level maybe below, and they are you can share it with them. So what sort of trusted group of colleagues and mentors you're having in your life for guidance? You need to ask your question. Maybe you can get 3 4 names you can relate while I am talking with you. You can, in your mind, you can think of those names. How are you connected with them? What sort of meaningful connections are you having with them? If you are having the support, they will be helping you out a lot in your emotional support, because you can share them a lot of stress which you are having in your life. These are the peoples who will be listening to each and everything which you will be saying. And these won't be a lot of people, 10 15 people. These will be only 3 4 5 peoples only in your life who will be genuinely listening and caring for you. And with them, you have to always focus upon how to create a safe space so that you can communicate very openly upon things that matter a lot, and things that are affecting your mental health and challenges. When you do this, you actually take the leverage of the network you are having, whether it is at workplace, whether it is outside of workplace. But most importantly, because we are talking about in the context of mental health at workplace, you should always focus upon how you can leverage your own network at workplace so that you can find out solutions, rather than putting all the things in yourself and you're loading yourself up and it will be bursting out at some point of time. You should understand how to use this network, and there should be a consistent flow of communication, open communication, so that you can share it out, you can vent it out in a proper manner, in a very healthy way. So this network, third tool network, will be helping you out in a very consistent flow of venting out your mental stress regularly. Because the same thing which I told earlier, the 5 peoples, you are the sum total of 5 people you meet around daily. Your network will be acting as your safety net daily if you try to vent out. Let us now move to the fourth tool. And this is a tool which I'll be telling you this. Most of the people are not using this tool. This is a very simple tool. And I want you to focus upon, maybe you can write it down. It will be a very simple tool that you can immediately apply. It won't be taking long. You can immediately apply this tool from now on. This is called as LOC, or loss of control. Locus of control, sorry. It's not loss of control. Locus of control simply means to the degree to which people believe they have control over the outcomes in their life. Now, 3 years ago, I'll tell you a short story. 3 to 4 years ago, there was a person in my life that shared me the difference between two of the mindsets, that these are the only two mindsets that people are having in their life, and these two mindsets help you define what sort of locus of control you are having in your life. So first locus of control is called as internal locus of control, where you are in control of your own life and the outcomes of the events that are happening in your life. This is a simple mindset which he shared it with me. It is called as victor mindset. Victor mindset is nothing but you taking the responsibilities of the things that are happening in your life. Each and everything, whether it is good or bad, you own these things. It is a sense of ownership that you can take in your life. And you always think about, if something does not went well in your life, if something is not happening good in your workplace, or your actions are not, giving you the outcomes, you think about in a way that there is something you need to improve. It is not someone else's fault. It is something that you need to focus upon, that will be helping you out with the outcomes you want in your life. Second kind of locus of control is pretty much, and this is the locus of control of 70 to 80% people at workplace. This is the external locus of control. 70 to 80% of the people think that, the things that are happening in their life, whether it is good or bad, these are dependent on external things. It might be dependent on their boss, or someone in their team is deciding or backbiting them. Most of these people think that their life is dependent on, luck and actions of others, or someone other than them is influencing their life. This is a victim mindset. And there is a huge difference between victor mindset and victim mindset. That difference is the sense of ownership. If you are taking sense of ownership, you are having a victor mindset. If you're not taking sense of ownership, then you're having a victim mindset. You can simply define these locus of control on the basis of sense of ownership. When you'll be focusing upon, now I want you to reflect upon what sort of locus of control you are having, whether it is an internal locus of control or whether it is an external locus of control. Or if you are even, let us suppose, you're having an internal locus of control for few of the things in your life, but most of the things are, you are having an external locus of control. So I want you to focus upon, maybe after this session or after this talk, you can try to focus upon what are some things that you take responsibilities of, or you are in complete ownership of those things. Or might be that 100% of the things in your life, you are taking the responsibilities for those things. So try to focus upon these things. What is your locus of control? And maybe, if let us suppose you're having a lot of things that you're taking ownership of, try to focus upon where you can take more ownership into your life, at workplace specifically. And when you try to do that, half of the problems, half of the stress will be reduced at workplace if you're having an internal locus of control. Because this is one quote, I tried to find out who said it because it was a very important quote. He said, Charles R. Swindoll, he said, life is 10% of what happens to us and 90% of how we react to it. So it all depends upon what is your locus of control. If your locus of control is, internal, then, you know, 90% of the things won't even matter to you. It won't be adding up in your mental stress at workplace. This is a simple takeaway I want you to have with this tool. Fourth, fifth tool is very important. This is something which people do not focus upon. And why this is one of the, this can be, I think this can be one of the most powerful tool. Because what is happening today, this era is an internet age where all, from morning to evening to night, we are all stacked up with a lot of information we are having in our life. We wake up, we the first thing which we touch is our phone, right? And there is a lot of information. News is, we are getting, stuck through news. We watch TV, we watch Netflix and all. There's a lot of information that is coming in our life. And at workplace, to be very specific, there's a lot of gossip going around, and that gossip adds up in the information that you are having. And trust me, our brain is not made up to handle this much amount of data. So all of this data, it affects you, it somehow gets stored, right? And it affects you on a day-to-day functioning and productivity. What low information diet simply means is how you can filter out each and everything. how you can selectively consume all the information that you're having in your life while focusing upon what adds real value into your life. So when you're on low information diet, 90% of the things in your office at workplace, you try to ignore those things. And when you do these things, there are three simple practices that you can do to have a low information diet. First is a question that I'll ask to you, a very simple question that I, asked to myself 3 4 years ago before I was stuck with the idea of having a low information diet. It was, are you consuming things or the things are consuming you? You can note this down in your notebook, or you can write this down question. It is very important for you to ask this question to yourself. Are you consuming things or the things are consuming you? When you'll ask this question, you will get to understand how important it is to have a low information diet. How to do that? Let me tell you three simple practices. First is, you can filter your sources from morning to evening. You can focus upon what are the sources that gives you trusted information. Is it something that is not a clickbait? Because if you, let us suppose, I will give you an example. If you go on YouTube, they'll give you how to do this thing in less time, or how to become rich quickly, or how to, have better relationships in, less time without doing anything, how to lose your weight in 3 days or 10 days. So these are all clickbaits. Most of the times we are, getting stuck up in these clickbaits. You have to understand that doing something this much important, or losing weight, or getting rich, is not a quick escape. It is over time you do it. And when you get in the trap of these clickbaits and everything, entire day is gone, your mental space is gone, your time is gone, your energy is gone, and you are not even aware of it. So the best practice is to filter these sources, whether it is coming from, the news which you are watching, whether it is coming from the gossips which are happening in the office, whether it is coming from the newsletters or updates in your phone, right? You have to identify what you can filter it out, right? Second thing is how you can set boundaries. One important move that I noticed was, I was watching a lot of, stories, WhatsApp stories or Instagram status of people. How it is important to know and understand what is going on with other people's life. But how does it matter a lot? Because the people, those who are really connected with you, you'll be already knowing what is happening in their life. You do not need to check each and everything that is happening on social media, right? Or even, let us suppose you are checking these things. The logic that is the best that I think is, you should be very much disciplined with your distractions. Most of the times we think in terms of that our actions should be disciplined. We do not think about that our distractions are something that are taking up most of the time. And if we discipline our distraction, because most of the time we do not remove the distractions. But if, let us suppose, we are having distractions, we want to use Instagram, we want to use YouTube, we want to use any other thing, can I fix some time for that? Can I make some boundaries for that? Can I have some proper fixed interval for doing that? And to do that, you should avoid the notifications and each and everything that is coming. Maybe you can have a, half an hour, 1 hour at the end of the day where you are in your low energy hour, and you can use that low energy hour to dedicate on your distractions, checking out social media or doing anything else, right? So you have to designate what are your information free zones, maybe the zones where you are, very less with energy, so that you can use that low energy time in utilizing with these distractions. Second thing is, like, when you're going forward with these practices, you have to be very intentional. And the last tool which I'll be sharing it with you, I'll be connecting the dots with what do I mean by being intentional. When you are on personal development journey, it is very important for you to have some goals, right? Whatever happens at your workplace, right, most of the things will not be affecting with you if you know that it is not important for you. So when you are intentional that how the things that are affecting you for a longer goal or your bigger goal, you'll be understanding the things of, the difference between the actions that you are having at your workplace and the distractions you are having at your workplace.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. So then you need to understand how you can track your social media consumption. What is the time limit that you are setting with that social media consumption? Try this low information diet. And then the last tool which I'll be sharing it with you in the workplace, this is called as mindful breaks. Taking mindful breaks. I don't know if most of the people might be would have heard of this technique called as Pomodoro technique. So how you can, you know manage your time better, how you can take mindful breaks, maybe after every 30 minutes, maybe after every 45 minutes or 50 minutes, so that you can take a breather and you can rejuvenate. Maybe if you are having a meditation practice or mindfulness practice, you can do that. You can take some breaths, you can go out for a walk, because you physically engage yourself and then you come back to the work. This will help you a lot in reducing the boringness or the day to day daily things that are happening, that are making you redundant. So if you schedule your breaks properly, if you have some sort of a routine where you are standing up from the desk and 30 minutes, 45 minutes after that, you are taking a break and having a simple breather. Maybe it is for coffee or a tea or something. And you use that time to network or to connect with other people, and you filter out or vent out your, stress in a positive way. This will help you a lot in taking mindful breaks. And it will help you a lot in regaining the focus. So this is all about what I wanted to share. Even let us suppose if one of the tool is helping you out, this is the last tool which I wanted to share. Of course, it is not a part of like the six tools, but this is a major tool also. It is called as pole star. The simple logic of a pole star is simply, pole star is something called as a north star. In India we call it as Dhruv Tara. So, that North Star, we take it as a reference for each and everything happening in our life. So, whenever we are having a, stress at our workplace, try to focus upon what is the longer goal. What is the your longer goal, and how each and everything that is, you know, acting as an action in at workplace, how it is getting attached to your longer goal, and how the things that are not attached with your longer goal or your pole star, how you can remove them out. A very simple way to filter out the distractions from in the workplace. When you are clear about your north star, most of the things you will be removing or filtering out at workplace that are not important, that are acting as, you know things that are adding up in your stress, you will be simply removing it if you're aware of your north star or your longer term goal. This is something which I wanted to share. Now, uh, you can start with defining your core values and setting the long term goals, which will help you out in refocusing regularly. When you do that, you will be living a more purposeful life and a more grounded life, even at workplace, with your boss, with your teammates, and your colleagues. And you can align each and everything that is happening at workplace, that will be indirectly and directly helping you out reduce the stress at workplace. The same thing which you can transfer it to the teammates also, your colleagues also. And if let us suppose if someone is open at your workplace, you can simply share them this logic also of having a pole star in your life. So now, before going forward with anything, I want to come back and I hope it was not taking much more long. And these are some tools actually which I found out that these things are very simple and very much effective. If even one or two tools we implement in our life, a lot of mental stress that we are having, it will be reduced to 90%, 95%, it will be getting reduced. And now I'm open to critique and questions which even anyone you want to add. I'll take give the stage to Rashmi ma'am back.
Thank you, Himanshu. That was wonderful presentation. And of course, we have Stephen with us. So we are now over to Steve. Yes, like whatever you have shared, and I know he had a lot of other things to simplify all their things and share a lot of knowledge and which are really really helpful. So that will be kind of super bonus to us. So over to Stephen now.
Thank you, ma'am.
So before we do that, I think that in case anybody would have any comments or questions that would come up, let's just take a little bit of time and thank you, Himanshu, for what a wonderful presentation. Such great information. So you could either put it into the chat or just unmute
Sir,
and go ahead.
sir, I'm 14. Jane.
Please, please.
I have a question to ask Himanshu. Uh, if you're working in a place, usually corporate, right? Because it's a private sector job in India. Now, what I'm asking is, you frequently change your jobs. Say 1 year, 2 year, maybe 6 months, maybe 3 years. But how do you create this network that you were speaking of? Because your workplace is changing all the time. So
Hmm.
how do you create these people network space where you can speak to them about these issues that you're facing in the office?
Right. So it is a an important question, a very important question to be frank. What I found out was I simply asked myself because it happened with me a lot also. I was changing workplaces, companies because some workplaces were not aligned with my purpose or I was not learning something. A simple question, what I found out whenever I go to any new workplace is there are two kind of people. Like I filter them out in two ways. One are plus and one are minus. So plus are those people, those who are adding, values. Whatever happens in their life, they do not think of it in a negative way. They simply try to find out, the solutions and the same mindset which I told earlier, victim mindset and victor mindset. And in every office there are these people. There will be a less percentage of these people. It might be 2-3% people, or if there is a team of 10 people, there will be only one or two people in that team. But surely there will be one or two people that will be there. And even if, let us suppose, in a team of 10 you are not finding those people, might be the case that they are not showing up as victor mindset. That victor mindset would be hidden. So if we as a person, if I show up my victor mindset, the person who is naturally a victor, he will be recognizing that, he will be getting attracted with that, and he will be communicating with you directly. Multiple times it happens in my workplace. People were having a lot of low energy people were there in the
Sir,
team.
I
And sorry, so what I was saying that was we have to identify these people, those who are adding, they are the plus in our life. So we have to identify these people, we have to add them in our network. And the more people, these kind of people we are having in our network, the more it is better for us to have a good work life. I think, does that answer?
Yes, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariam. It was a good question, Mariam.
Thank you,
okay,
Himanshu.
thank
So
you.
I'll go ahead. If so and thank you for passing the baton. So I have a completely different presentation style, and I love the way the information that you presented and everything that you brought forward. What I found through managing the Global Summit events community is that we start off with sharing information, but there's an interesting effect that happens when we actually extract the information that we all carry in this world. And every person in this room is living life. They're experiencing the difficulties of workplace, the difficulties of family. And if we can extract what works for each one of us, we can actually come away with so much information. So all of the things that you shared are things that I found Himanshu, that are immensely valuable. And there's just one thing that I'd like people to take away from today, and it's this idea that you've got the power to influence your mental health through intentional choices, right? You have more power than you realize. And we're on this journey of curiosity, of finding out what works for us. And so the style that I prefer to have is I don't have any slides. It's more about a connection with, okay, let's have a discussion. Let's open up this floor for finding out what works for you. And the first thing that we're faced with is, what causes us stress in the workplace? And what I'd like to share the concept, the idea is that we're talking about an area that we're not educated in, right? We either grow up in a family that has instructions on communication, on boundary setting, on being able to stand up for yourself, building that self-confidence, or we don't. And there's nothing wrong with either one, but the thing is you can't just step into this space of mental wellness if you haven't grown in it. So it's this idea that just like a baby learns to walk, the stumbling, and Miriam's here and she has her baby that just took her first steps this week. What a wonderful celebration. But babies don't start walking right away. I've got a book behind me. It made international bestseller. It was a anthology with 22 other authors, and it's about boundary setting. It's thriving in life's gray zone, beyond boundaries. The concept that I put forward with boundaries is that if you don't know how to set boundaries, it's very difficult to first start setting them. It's like a baby learning to walk, and you'll probably get it wrong. You'll probably fall down, and it's okay because a boundary is there to protect your mental wellness, your mental health. If you're wounded, you're going to have stricter boundaries, and you're going to probably have more, um, significant consequences to somebody violating your boundary. It's like, oh, if you do this, I'll never talk to you again. But you can't do that with family, and you can't do that with work. But you would sure like to. So it's this idea that it's finding out what works, and what will happen over time is you'll realize is as you heal, like things like boundary setting, once you get better at doing that, you realize that you can actually relax those boundaries later on. You can realize that, okay, this person's going to violate your boundaries. It won't have that same reaction. It won't trigger you in that same response mode. But then you can decide what you want to do with this person. And you realize that people fall into different categories. Either they're unaware or they just don't care. And either one of those is okay. So, Dr. Rajesh, I see your hands up. Go ahead and step in, share your comment. And it may just be that you don't realize that your hand is up. So on this journey, if you got something to share, please either put it in the comments or unmute. So I think that it might just be a technical little glitch there. So the concept is that it's becoming aware of the people that are in our space. So when we're looking at trying to be conscious of other people in the work environment, the ones that kind of trigger they trigger either thoughts or emotions that happen after we've had the interaction. Because that's really what mental health is about. It's actually having that peace of mind. It's feeling good about who we are. But there are things that happen in this world that we'll be thinking about afterwards. It might be our actions, it might be the actions of another. Something happened that just doesn't make any sense. There's somebody that I really admire, and this person is very sweet, very professional. But what helped them immensely is just saying when somebody triggered them and did something that wasn't in alignment with their expectations, it just helped them to say that this person was in their mind, out loud, that the person was a stupid idiot.
Yes,
Because
Dr.
if you're
Rajesh. Yeah, please. Yes, Dr. Rajesh, do you have any what you would like to add here?
Now, I must say, Dr. Shimanshu has given very comprehensive thing, but my only feeling, in Indian context, when we are talking, we are very sentimental people. And as Stephen was telling, setting boundaries. Can we really set boundaries like that? We are going to lose friends and family people who
Correct.
will say, "Oh, he has become something bigger, and his behavior is absolutely, arrogant or something like that." Don't you think, Himanshu?
So, what happened actually, I think, I don't know if Steven and Rashmi ma'am would be aware of this thing. 4 years ago, I took something, I called it as poison. It was called as power of saying no. I don't know if you remember this or not. So, I discussed with one of our coaches, Muhib, also. We got through a discussion about how we can change that or reframe it, because when we go in the mode of setting boundaries, we talk a lot about saying no to the things and people in our life. Then I came up with an idea of, when we realize the power of saying no, we should understand the art of saying no as well. And that brings me to the first tool, which is communication. So let us suppose, if I'm having any friend, he's asking me for party or something. So I would very much politely say that I need to understand how I can communicate that no with him. Right? Or let us suppose, if there is a team party, let us suppose my team is going for an outing, and I do not want to go because I do not like the discussions and all of these things. So I would politely say that I am having something at my home. I would very much like to go all with you. I very much enjoy with you, but at the same point, you can understand, I'm having something at my home. So it is just in context of Indian workplace, I would very much say that we have to be very much smart and cunning while setting boundaries, because it will backfire to us, and it has backfired to me, very frankly, like in every workplace. If I was not smart enough, if I was not cunning enough to communicate my boundaries, I would end up in a very lonely place.
Yes,
And
rightly,
and
and it is the right question you ask, because in a society and culture, like na respect is too much focused. That is bad to say no. You have to always be obeying other people or helping. So this happens, and where one of the workshop I attended with Dr. Tariq, that being assertive, it's very very important that from the childhood we teach our children to how to be assertive, rather than we that automatically sets a boundary. I know it was difficult. There were a lot of techniques to understand. So that is why self improvement and connecting, attending these types of interacting with people, it helps us that who are doing their experiences to knowing, becoming aware that there are things that we can learn. There is nothing that we cannot learn in our life. So there is no stoppage of learning. So that is, this was also my question. Thank you, Dr. Rajesh. You have asked it already, because
so
I find this is very difficult thing to do.
it's a wonderful question, and it also goes back to like the idea of creating the network. And what I found is the biggest thing that we can do is actually become that we seek externally. So the more that we create become the person that we're meant to become. Like if you want to become, you know, a friend in your workplace, actually, if you want friends in your workplace, actually become the friend in your workplace. Find
Correct.
out what that is to you and become that. And the more that you do that, actually, it doesn't matter whether you change jobs or not. You will actually carry the this this cloud of being with you, and you'll attract those people that will resonate with that same space. And I think it's a great question, Dr. Rajesh, because when you're talking about boundaries, especially boundaries with difficult people, when you're highly conscientious, when you care about other people, you'll come across people that don't care, that don't have any
Mm.
boundaries, that they're on this toxic scale, and they will not only say and do whatever is in the moment, um, they will do things that don't make any sense. They will do things that intentionally are there to cause you pain for no purpose. I mean, it doesn't have any business gain, it doesn't have any personal gain, and you're trying to figure out what are they doing and trying to make sense of it. Sometimes people do things that just don't make sense. And so part of those boundaries are it's not dealing, you could have family that is constantly put you in a space where you feel bad about yourself. And my point about that is we have to take responsibility for our life. We have to realize that this is our life to live, and that we have to find out what works for us. And so if a person within our family is always causing us to become less, to feel worse, we have to find something creative in a way that we can grow and support and become more. And sometimes that those behaviors are not in a loving way. They're not actually looking out for our best interest. They're just stepping on us to elevate themselves. And once we realize this, we we realize that there's nothing that we can do to make them happy. There's nothing we can do to make them, you know, in a place where they're okay. So something that I teach to my people pleaser, colleagues is that there are some that their greatest happiness is being offended. Their greatest happiness is being angry. And so instead of saying it out loud and saying, I'm sorry, I just say, tell them you're welcome. But don't say it out loud. You just say it in your mind. Because if they're seeking a problem, if they're seeking fault, they will find it no matter what you do. And so if your goal is to try to be perfect, to try to help them, to try to make them happy, well, what if they're happiest when they're unhappy? You have to the greatest
Hmm.
respect you can have for another being is to accept them as they are. And if they choose to be unhappy, honor them. So that's the idea. It's the greatest honor you can give someone is to actually accept them as they are. And it doesn't mean, I always hear the golden rule. The golden rule is, treat other people as you would like to be treated. But I like the platinum rule. Treat other people as they would like to be treated, even if they want to be offended, even if they want to be angry. And it's like, I am here for you, and if you're conscientious, it's realize that their anger focused on you removes that from somebody that might be a little bit less, that it would be more filled with, self-judgment or something that might come along with that. If Because some of us can actually handle other people's responses. And one of the most beautiful things that I've experienced in life is forgiveness. And I'll explain the process that occurred with this. This was someone that was passing off my work as theirs. They were doing things within a work environment to create division, to spread rumor and gossip, and to create all of this drama. And and as I grew in I call it emotional maturity, I realized that sometimes people that create drama, they want you to spread that drama. And so if you're trying to make sense of it, sometimes you'll actually talk to someone else about this and you'll say, oh my gosh, this happened. You're trying to make sense of it. But what I realized is we can't convey everything that happens when a person does something. We can't convey the details. We can't convey the emotion. There's so much that's lost in translation. And the biggest thing that I'd like to share with people is your assessment of it is good enough, right?
Hmm.
When someone does something, your judgment, your evaluation of what happened is enough. It doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be something that occupies any more of your mind. And the greatest moment of forgiveness came was when I was practicing a mindfulness technique called meeting a person for the first time. So this person, they had done so many things in the past that in the past, being a sensitive individual, I would be like I would meet them and I'd already be on guard. I would already be, you know, kind of having an emotional connection to the things that they did in the past. But this technique is involved where it's like passing somebody on a boardwalk, heading down towards a beach or a place where you just step into a place of curiosity. And as you pass this person, as you experience them for the first time again, it's not that your awareness of what has happened in the past is gone, but you actually de-link from that emotional attachment to the wrong that they did to you in the past. And if this person, there are people in this world that will use um,
Okay.
your emotions as a manipulation. And if they use your emotions as a manipulation, what you'll notice is that the more that you become curious, the more that instead of going into a triggered state, the more that you become curious about what's going on, they will escalate
Hmm.
their emotional engagement. And it'll cross this line in your mind that says, oh, there's no misunderstanding this. This person's doing something quite odd. And the more odd they become, the more curious you become. And it's actually a place of immense freedom because all of a sudden you realize that it's not you. There's no chance of misunderstanding this. Their behavior is quite strange and quite unique, and then you just release it. And once you have that release, there's no reason to be to view them any other way than you kind of view them as, okay, there's something unskilled here or something unsettled. It doesn't matter how you view it, but you realize that this person, they're not in their energy, they're not in their strength. And so all of the things that they do, because most of the time they'll use emotion to manipulate you and to
Thank you.
pressure you.
Thank you.
So it's an interesting thought. Go ahead.
Thank you.
So I saw Muhib had his hand up.
Yes.
Yeah, Mohit.
Go ahead, my friend.
Wonderful workshop, guys. Amanshu, a great presentation. Stephen, thank you for sharing um, all the wonderful golden tips. I just wanted to add on what Dr. Rajesh was talking about, how, in this part of the world, we live in joint families, and we live in communities, and our relationships are such that it's quite entangled. It's not just about creating boundaries and just living on your own and letting people go, because it's just not possible, because there are intermarriages and there are communities that you live together. And so how to be like this? So this is my boundary, that's my boundary. So the normal Western way does not work. There has to be a lot more, because there a lot more goes into it. The relationships are entangled. The families live in the same house, 5, 6, 10 families living in the same house. So understanding those things while you are creating boundaries, and being open. And but the one thing that I'll add to Dr. Rajesh is understanding where is this coming from, and how you are uh, wanting to hold these relationships, for what purpose, and how are you communicating, which Himanshu was talking but he was talking about workspace, but the same thing happens in the families. How are you engaging with them? How are you listening to what they are saying? Because a lot of conflicts within families happen when everybody is more talking from their space, instead of listening to understand what's happening and address the concerns of each other. Um, um, so if we can be a bit more open in listening and understanding each other's concerns, why they are having these conflicts, and why are they in our space and they won't give us that space, what is their understanding? So that communication, openness to understand, and being clear and assertive in how you are, can create a lot better bonding and respect within communities, families. um, you know because with all this, there's a lot of love and respect that goes on to it, respect to elders, and things like that. Takes a lot of understanding, um, not to be pleasing, but rather be more assertive, and understanding yourself on what is triggering you, and why are others' behavior affecting you and your life and your behavior and your mood overall. That's all. Thank you so much.
So I,
Sorry, Stephen, go on.
no, it's good, and I love that, and I just want to I want to make it clear that when I said cutting people out of your life, that's what we want to do. It's not what we can do, because you can't do that in a workplace and you can't do that in your family. And so, but the thing is when someone is sensitive, there's this. I'm talking about the person that is actually having a very difficult time with life. We do know people that are having difficult time, getting out of bed. And in Malaysia, it's 20% of the population is has high levels of depression. 1 out of 5. That's a huge number. So there's this crisis that's going on, and the person that I'm speaking about is I'm talking about the person that is not conscientious, that does not care, that is fluid in the truth, that does things to intentionally harm others, and it's there's not a lot of people out there like that. But when you come across that one in 1,000 or one in, whatever it is, they can wreak such havoc on your world that that it leaves a wake of devastation. And so that's where the boundaries come in. It's realizing that if you come across someone that is in that frame of reference, right, that's when you have to decide. And what you'll notice is there's actually a progression that happens. Even though we may not cut someone out of our life physically, we will distance ourselves from them in an
Mentally.
emotional state. We will actually start disconnecting from them. And there's some things that we notice on a human personal scale. Connection is something that can be felt. When we are
Hmm.
connected with people, when we are engaged and open, we notice it, and we notice those people that are distant or that are not offering that connection to us, and it's okay. I mean, it's all in this space. The best way that I think that we can create that connection is we actually create that connection with ourselves. Many times we're all looking externally for the answers. We're looking externally for um, significance. We're looking externally for validation. And it's my premise that we actually should create that within ourselves first. We should always turn within and find out, okay, what am I looking for externally, and how can I create that within myself? So we see this within the world. So many times we're taught that our significance, our value is based upon the job that we have, the money that we make, our status in the world. But how many people that have that are not happy, right? We're talking about mental health here. How many CEOs of companies feel like, well, why am I doing this? What is my purpose in life? They've gone through this whole transition where they've gone to the highest level that they can achieve in life, and they're not feeling validated. They don't feel like they've accomplished what they want in life, and they turn into these angel investors, or they turn into philanthropists that start giving back. The thing is it doesn't matter where we're at in life. We can actually step into this space. And I think it's part of the spiritual energy. It's part of changing our reference on who we are. And so what I'd like to talk about is, if we really want to have a place of mental wellness, it's connecting to that part of us within us that recognizes our own value. It That value is independent of anything that we do, anything that we say, anything that we know. That value is the fact that we're here living a human experience and learning along the way. It's celebrating the imperfect journey of life, whatever that entails, and it's becoming curious about that. And the second part that comes along with that is acceptance. You accept others in a way that you realize that, okay, how you are and how you act is under your own domain, and how I am and how I act is under mine. And it's finding out with curiosity what works for each one of us. It's accepting how anyone else is, and that release of expectation will actually improve your mental health and your mental wellness in a huge way. And along with that is non-judgment. Go ahead, Rashmi. I see your hands up.
Thank you, Mohit. No, Mohit is going here this session. Thank you, Mohit,
Uh,
for being here.
Thank you, Mohit.
yeah, thanks for
Bye
your
bye.
inputs, Mahib. And so a part of that is non-judgment. So one of I mean, how often do we compare ourselves to somebody else? So we compare ourselves to somebody else within work. We compare how smart they are, or how much they know, or the kind of car that they drive, or the family that they have. And a lot of times this is an illusion, especially with social media. There's so much that is. I can remember when I first started in the coaching world. I was dating a young lady, and we would put up videos and have discussions. And someone came up to me and said, "Oh my gosh, you guys are so amazing." It's like, I don't know how you can have such a perfect relationship. You don't fight. And it's like both of us looked at each other like, we fight like cats and dogs sometimes. And this person was so relieved to realize that it's like, we're not trying to be perfect. We're just sharing who we are in this journey of life, and everyone goes through these things. And so it's finding out how that works and everything else. So So that next part is that non-judgment. And there's one last thing that comes along with this is if you can step into that energy, there's a self-confidence, there's a peace, there's an energy that comes along that other people can sense. I believe that when we carry an emotional state within us, we actually can share that with another person. If we're stressed, they will be stressed. If we're in a space of fear, they may be in a space of fear. And what's interesting is, fear has a couple different forms of expression. And they can say fight, flight, freeze, right? Well, if someone is in the fight mode of fear and someone else is in the freeze mode of fear, they actually may be communicating in that same emotional space, that same energetic space, where one is aggressive and one is withdrawing. And they're both in the same energy. And the best thing that you can do in that space is actually change your own emotional state. If you can step into a place of peace, whether it be through breathing, activating that parasympathetic nervous system, then the option is you can join them in their space of fear response, or they can join you in your space of peace, of calm. And either way, it's fine. It's acknowledging that it's not your responsibility to change their emotional state, but if you can change yours, you give them a 50, it's almost 100% better odds of having them join in a place of peace with you. And I think you've noticed this as well. If you've been in a place of peace or a place of confidence or security, and someone else is going through a difficult time, you'll find out that it's not even about you anyways. When they come in and they're shouting and they're yelling, it's about something else that's going on. And once they come into a calm space, it's like they realize, okay, sorry about that.
Mm.
So that's what I'd like to share. I just wanted to say if there's anything else that came up with that, with that concept. Coming back, it's just this concept of, this is our life. It's being curious about what works for each one of us. And it's realizing that every one of us has life experience. We've learned things along the way. And so I'd like to just open it up to the floor and to find out what works for you when it talks about either, finding peace or calm or security in the workplace, or in training events, or whatever it is where that would be helpful. What works for you, and would you be willing to share that with the rest of the group?
Yes, that's a good idea to ask a question that what works for them, because everyone finds some way or some solution. So whatever is one something wrong goes to them. So we'll be learning kind of with each from each other today. If we share that, okay, in some of the bad situation, or when I was not feeling what I did that made me feel better. So I expect a little small answer for everyone. Dr. Joshi,
So
if you,
I'll start first,
yeah, sure.
and for me, it's reframing. So for me, the best thing that works for me is when something comes up, right? Because we will, and this is something that I'd like to reinforce, which is we will have triggers in our life. So there's certain things that have biological links to us having a physical response. One of them is rejection, right? If we're rejected, if we're fired, if a relationship happens, even if we don't like the person, even if the best thing that they could do would be to remove us from their life, that would actually improve our mental health, we will still feel bad because we have a biological predisposition to a social connection. And if we feel like we're being rejected, we will have a physical response to that. And along with that is criticism and judgment. So those things will actually create a defensive mechanism. It's part of our biology. And so when we have a response to it, it's not something that's a problem. It's something that's built into our system. But our ability to be emotional resilient is something that we can harness. So instead of having a week-long effect of, oh my gosh, this happened and I'm a bad person and this and that, we actually can take it and say, okay, how can I manage this emotion? How can I have it be removed? And part of this is self-awareness and everything else. So one of the things that I found is reframing, right? Actually, the first step I found was self-awareness, which instead of saying, okay, why did this happen? I just say, what am I experiencing? What is the feeling that's going through my body? What's the chemistry? What's that? And then once you have that experience of, okay, what are you experiencing? Because your focus is no longer on the triggering event, your focus is now on the physical sensation, that chemistry will start dissipating. And the more that you actually try to grasp it or to experience it, you'll notice it dissipating. And it actually trains your body to realize that very quickly, within 5 to 15 minutes, any chemistry within your body can be dissipated. And the more that you actually try to experience it, it's like a little cloud. It's the more you try to grasp it, the harder it is to hold. It's part of this meditative journey of realizing that your emotional state can transfer very quickly. And then the next space after this idea of self-awareness is reframing it. So it's shifting that message or that judgment in your mind into something that's more helpful. And if you can reframe it in a way that's positive or helpful or something that'll allow you to let it go, then all of a sudden you unload it from your mental space and you're no longer processing it, because it's the processing of the experience that reinforces the chemistry that causes you to feel bad. And if you can unload that, then you can just move on and no longer think about it. So I'd like to throw it back to the floor now. What works for someone else?
Well, I'll add something to this, Steven. What happens, like reframing is such a great tool, to be very frank. I use it much more often. But what I found was, how do we represent things in our mind of whatever is happening in our life, whether it is a workplace or family situations or anything. How do we reframe that in event in our mind? Most the how do we reframe? It will be helping us out understand what is the state we are in, whether that state is a resourceful state in which we can take action, we can be more decisive, we can be more communicative, or we are in a good mental state, or whether it is an unhelpful or an unresourceful state. So most of the time, like if we are in resourceful or unresourceful state, it depends upon how are we representing the things that are happening in our life, in our mind. So if let us suppose something goes wrong in office, how am I representing that? Am I thinking in a way that, okay, this happened because of this and this person, or it happened because I was somewhere, I was at fault, or I am thinking in a much more positive way that, okay, this has happened, this is the truth which has happened, I can do nothing about it. What I can do about it is what response I am giving to that situation. So if I'm thinking about in that way, how it works is I am going into a much more resourceful state where I'm having all the resources of thinking and decision making and taking actions, and I do that, take that action that particularly. And I found this, most of people do not talk about this. Most of the decision makers or who are very quick in decision making, even at the stressful situations that are happening at workplace, in company. And when we are talking about, because I have worked in sales and everything, so we have a lot of stressful situations. People every day talk about numbers, targets, revenue. So how do we handle these situations is a lot about good leaders always focus upon, they know the truth that this has happened and how we can make it better. And this is what separates a bad leader also. They always focus upon, this has happened wrong, who is at fault. So rather than
So
finding out who is at fault, we can think about, I think this works for most of the people, those who take are at good decision making positions.
mhm. It's interesting. So the way that I would reframe that, and this is a term that I really enjoy using now, is instead of thinking of good or bad, which is kind of a judgment, right? Because in most of the time we think of ourselves as either good or bad, right? We in that it's such a heavy weight when we do something bad. So
Hmm.
I prefer to move it into a space of saying that this leader is unskilled. They might be unskilled at communication, which opens up the possibility that there is not judgment there, that there it's like a child is unskilled when they first start out and they learn to become better. And so if you can phrase it in a way that it's unskilled, what happens is that skill can be developed. And so often a leader that will act in that way, they're in this space of imposter syndrome. They're actually terrified that you'll find out that they are unskilled, that they are so defensive of their space because they're deathly afraid of being found out that they are inadequate to be able to do their job, or they feel like they're over their head, without realizing that they've actually shifted out of the space of maybe technically doing in more in a space of leadership. So that space of leadership is actually protecting your team. It's having your team become better than you. And there's a lot of people out there that are afraid of having people that are better than them, because as a leader, that is the best thing that you can possibly do. You're constantly trying to elevate the people around you, because as you elevate, they will fill in your position. And that's the security that comes along with having that mentality is very rare. That means that you are at peace with your egoic state, because our ego is afraid of being judged. It's afraid of being found less than. It's afraid of dying. It's afraid of all of these different things. But but what we have is, when you have a leader they have no fear. They have no fear of that. They don't have no fear of somebody being better than them. They're there applauding and cheering that person on. So the challenge occurs is, it's not when we have a good environment and good leadership. The challenge occurs when we have that person that is lacking. The worst place to be is when you're smarter than your boss. It's horrible.
I can relate that.
But in this scenario, what I'd like to share here, the one thing that when we come to the education sector, like in the school sector, so it's a very different kind of organization. Actually, where the adults are responsible for the right kind of development and learning of the minors. So it is a different kind of stress there. And normally it's like we have to look. So we I just a simple formula: stop, look, and see. So, this is something which whether we are dealing with the colleague, whether we are dealing with the leader, or whether we are dealing with our students. So, there is always something else which we look at. So, stop, look, and see, because it's very irritating when you're trying to teach something to somebody and the person is not responding in the right way. Because that person is not actually might be not be taking anything from you, might not, because the sometimes we feel as that we have a foggy mind, we are not able to understand what the other person is saying, but so it is very important that give a pause at that moment, try to find out some other reason behind it, that might not be something intellectual, or there might be something else to do that. So stop, look, and see, that has my formula, which actually has helped me to understand so many things, because going beyond the layer, removing one layer and then going the next layer, so that gives me an opportunity that okay, and I have really helped me, because I found that it was really really good thing. And so it is very wonderful. But just we, because we are almost reaching to the end of the workshop, so we'll invite anybody. We still have, we can spend a few minutes, and happy that people are still there. It means that we, whatever you have been sharing, Himanshu and Steven, that has been very engaging to the people. So if anybody would like to say something or have a question, please come forward. And we still have some time. We can spare 7 minutes.
And I'd like to ask if anyone has found something that's helpful in resilience, because when it's like, especially in the educational environment, sometimes there's a layer of bureaucracy that gets formed. And so what is helpful? What is helpful to you when dealing with a difficult situation, or having a difficult conversation, or having an expectation that's not met? Because there is a tremendous pressure, and that it's that work-life balance, and sometimes, a lot of it's asked of different people. So that would be my question: is what has worked for you in managing the difficulties of the educational sector? And I'll pick on Miriam because I know her, if she's still there. What's worked for you when dealing with a challenging work environment?
It's more of what Rashmi ma'am was talking about. But for me, in a simple language, it would mean pause because I take a pause. And now it comes naturally because I practiced it over a period of time. Responding, what do you say, reacting to any kind of situation is not working for me, and I found it out. So responding to it is more like it nowadays. And responding would only happen if I take a pause, look at it, and then give my response. It doesn't mean that someone is screaming at me and I just have to scream back to make my point known. It comes more with the response of, okay, I'm listening to what you have to say, but telling it nicely, maybe a little more assertively, that this is not, this is not working. This is not what I see, and this is not working with us. So it's a good way to do it. It's a little difficult. I wouldn't say it's easy, but the urge to this react is more, right, and usually it is like that. But if we take a pause and then respond, that works a lot. Another thing that works with me is switching on and switching off. It's like when I am in the workspace, I switch off my mind that is at home, where the kids are and what they're doing and things like that. And when I am out of my office, I switch off the workplace. So then I'm focused on my family and my home. So that helps me regulate all the stress. Because once you've done that, it calms your nerves, for one. It helps you sleep over what's happened during the day. It gives you time to reflect on what has happened. So yeah, these are some small things, some small practices that I do to reduce a little stress that I have. Thanks a lot. It's a wonderful workshop. Learned a lot of things from Himanshu and Stephen. Thank you, Rashmi, for organizing.
Thank you. Thank you for attending. So I will request Anita ma'am, are you here? Would you like to ask somehow what helped you, if you can share? Anita ma'am?
Yeah, hi. Good evening. I was actually, after a long time, I came on Meet, so I was kind of looking for the mic and the camera to turn it on. Okay, it's been, I joined late, but it's been quite an interesting conversation and discussion that was happening, and I've been listening. I kind of got glued so much to Himanshu's ideas and Stephen's thoughts. A lot of things that came up in my mind, I thought I'll share. I kind of typed also, but then I stopped there. I said, let me see if I do get a chance to speak, probably, I'll come up with something. Well, actually, consenting with what Stephen had talked about self-awareness, that's something which I practice a lot. I'm somebody with uh, a bit of a short temperament. So I have been practicing self-awareness quite a bit for many years. And that kind of has helped me in watching myself whenever I react. Response is something which we always want to practice, but how do we manage our reactions? So when I am somebody who gets, upset on something very often, how do I watch myself the way I react to it? So let's say if I'm snapping at my son for something, or if I'm snapping at a colleague or a staff member of mine, where the work hasn't been done well, or my son does not, has not followed anything that I have told him to do. The moment I see there's a reaction coming, the thing that I feel first is the physical sensations. My body starts getting warm and all that. So that's something which I also try. The technique I of self-awareness is something which I also get my clients to practice as well. That's where we kind of begin with, especially when we are trying to do a therapy session with a client. So self-awareness is something which I practice a lot. That's something, and that has helped me a lot in terms of understanding how I react in terms of emotions, the different kind of emotions that come out. And mm, what else? That was part of what Stephen was asking. If anybody would want to share about that. Coming to workplace, the part where Himanshu was sharing a lot of things, and also what Dr. Rajesh had spoken about. There are a lot of things that come up at workplace in terms of people not able to understand why somebody has not responded to their particular thing in a proper manner, and why should somebody become upset because they were judged or questioned about what kind of work they have done, and something, whatever performance that they have done, and it does not come out well. Here again, I would say, self-awareness is one thing which they definitely need to practice, because I have had this experience where I had bosses where I felt I was a little smarter than my boss, and those were very difficult times. And being the kind of person that I am, I've always had difficulty, dealing with those kind of situations. But then what I realized is, like Mariam said, you pause, watch what you're thinking or what you are feeling at that moment, and then you respond. That is something which I think I have learned myself over the years to deal with people, because I have worked with bosses who were younger to me, where the mindsets did not match. So it was quite difficult. But then I realized that sometimes, you need to also understand that when this person is younger to you, they're still growing. They're yet to come to a point where, resilience is something which they need to pick up. But then we need to give them their own experiences to realize what they are doing. So sometimes you need to really stop yourself and allow them to experience what they're experiencing. But sometimes what happens is, in companies, um, hire and fire is a pretty common thing that happens. But when people are firing, they start having this guilt that, whether I'm doing the right thing of, firing these people. But then when that is happening, they also need to do a check on themselves, whether they did the right thing, or, whether they took a right decision to fire somebody. And if they have to fire because there are strong reasons for that, that's okay. They don't have to feel guilty about it, because it's a company. And a company is where you go and work. You don't bring your emotions, your personal emotions forward, because that is not a place where you have families. That's a place where you are performing. You are being paid for whatever outcome you're giving for the company's growth. So yeah, that's something which I wanted to add there. I guess I
Thank
guess
you
I
so much.
added something.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Wonderful. That, yeah, good point.
Thank you.
So, okay. Thank you so much. It's a very, I'm very grateful to presenters and to the people who have shared, and also to the attendees who have been, even we were over time, they are, most of them are still stuck with us. So thank you so much for your kind support, and I expect that you will continue supporting me, us, for, so that we can achieve our goals and all. So this is something actually very close to my heart, and to our company. We do it, and this is really, thank you so much.